9/11 is the time right now. Electric bills are climbing across the D.C. region, and many customers are asking why. Utility companies point to growing energy demand, including from data centers, while lawmakers are considering new ways to rein in costs. And joining us now is Charles Wah, founder and executive director of PowerLines, which is a nonprofit consumer education organization that aims to modernize the utility regulatory system and lower costs for customers. Charles, thank you very much for joining us. And a lot of families have seen their electric bills rise in recent years. What's actually driving the increase here?
Well, the reality is that it is a lot of complicated factors, but utility bills in the DMV region have increased more than in almost any other region in the country. And a lot of that is because our grid is aging, it's getting old, and it's not efficient. So there's all this talk about data centers, and that's certainly putting a lot of pressure on the grid. But even before data centers really emerged onto the scene as the now big force that it is, utility bills had already been going up because our grid is getting old.
All right. Yeah, so, but you did say that this was before the data centers emerged on the scene. Are the data centers actually pushing this up even higher, or is that just something that people are talking about?
Well, there's something unique in the Mid-Atlantic region that residents across the DMV are part of, is that there is a regional grid operator called PJM that manages the generation and the transmission of energy. And so those costs have been going up in part because demand for electricity has been rising across the region. But there are other factors too that are really important. Extreme weather events have taken its toll on the local grid infrastructure. And one thing that doesn't get talked about as much is that the spending on the grid has really grown for a variety of reasons, and that's something that these public utilities commissions that are in all of these states need to take a closer look at.
All right, and you said the spending on the grid. So the spending on the grid is not helping to bring the cost down?
Well, if done right, it should, because we all want, more reliable electricity that when we get the bill at the end of the month is low. But the reality is we're paying more for energy, and the reliability of that energy is getting worse in some ways. So that raises a question of, well, what is that spending going to? And that is the job of these regulators, because these utility companies, they're monopolies. So they have to be regulated by what's called public service commissions or public utilities commissions. DC has one, Maryland has one, Virginia has one. And these are bodies that are generally appointed by either the governor, in this case the mayor, or the state legislature. So folks should really consider engaging with these bodies because they're the ones that oversee and set essentially the electricity prices.
All right, real quick before we go, a lot of people don't know the difference, but there are companies that generate electricity and companies that deliver them to the homes, and there's companies that use a lot of electricity. So break down the difference here.
So to get your energy from the power plants that produce that energy to your home, it has to go through essentially this highway of the grid. And there's all these complicated structures. The bottom line is that consumers don't really know how any of this works, and they don't have a say in the process. So that's something that at PowerLines, we really try to break down how this works. You can check it out at powerlines.org, but it provides some more of a breakdown of how electricity gets from these power plants to your home and how you can get involved and make your voices heard throughout this process.
All right. And hopefully I'll save some dollars in the long run. Charles Wah, founder and executive director of PowerLines, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having us.
Joe, over to you.